Mary Hargrove, The Price of a Restless Soul. Mary Hargrove was no ordinary child. From a young age, she had a knack for stirring trouble, her piercing gaze always watching for cracks in others she could exploit. While other children played innocently in the fields, Mary reveled in whispers and lies, setting her peers against one another. By the time she turned 16, her reputation as a cunning gossip was well established. But all her time spent in mischief meant she never learned the skills expected of a young woman, cooking, cleaning, or running a household. When Mary married a hard-working farmhand, the reality of her inadequacy struck her with brutal force. Her husband, exhausted from long days in the fields, craved hearty meals she had no idea how to prepare. Desperate to hide her shortcomings, Mary sought the help of Mrs. Eleanor Finch, an elderly widow known throughout the small New England town for her culinary expertise. Eleanor's demeanor was stern, her eyes sharp as if they could see straight through a person's soul. "Mrs. Finch," Mary pleaded one afternoon, "I need your help." "What is it, Mary?" Eleanor replied, her voice steady and cold. "Do you know how to make a bread and giblet soup? My husband's been asking for it and I—" Mary hesitated, lowering her eyes. "I don't know where to start." With a faint smirk, Eleanor explained the recipe step by step, her tone measured. Mary listened, then dismissed the instructions with her usual arrogance. "Oh, I already knew that." Day after day, Mary returned, demanding more recipes, and each time she dismissed Eleanor's guidance with the same haughty reply. The older woman's patience wore thin, and her gaze grew darker with each visit. One afternoon, Eleanor finally leaned in close, her voice a low murmur tinged with an unsettling edge. "You want to impress your husband with a truly special dish?" she asked. Mary nodded eagerly. "Then listen carefully," Eleanor said, her lips curling into a smile that sent a chill down Mary's spine. "Go to the cemetery at the edge of town. Wait until the last burial of the day. When the mourners have gone and the night is thick with silence, dig up the freshest grave. Take a knife, open the belly of the corpse and harvest its stomach and intestines. Clean them well, cook them thoroughly and season to taste. Serve it to your husband, and he'll never want another meal." Mary's breath quickened, not with fear, but with a perverse thrill. She nodded, thanked Eleanor, and left without hesitation. That night, under a blanket of stars and a crescent moon, Mary crept to the cemetery. The damp earth clung to her boots as she approached a freshly filled grave. She worked quickly, her spade slicing into the dirt. When she unearthed the corpse, the stench of decay hit her like a wave, but she pressed on. Returning home, Mary followed Eleanor's instructions meticulously. She served the dish to her husband, who devoured it with delight, praising her newfound culinary skills. Mary smiled, triumphant. But as the night deepened, an unnatural chill descended upon the house. The air grew heavy, and faint creaks echoed through the wooden floors like the house itself was groaning. Then came the whispers, soft at first but growing louder, more insistent. They seemed to seep from the walls, weaving through the air like smoke. Mary tried to ignore them, but the sound became unbearable, each whisper repeating the same haunting phrase. "Mary Hargrove, return what you have taken." The whispers grew into moans, then into a chorus of voices, each one filled with anger and despair. And then the footsteps began. Heavy, deliberate, they echoed through the hallway, growing louder with each passing second. Terrified, Mary locked the bedroom door and huddled under the covers, her heart pounding. But the footsteps didn't stop. They grew closer and closer until they halted just outside her door. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. It stretched for what felt like an eternity before the door creaked open, though no hand touched the latch. Standing in the doorway was a figure, its outline shrouded in shadow, its features grotesque and decayed. The corpse's sunken eyes glared at Mary, its jaw unhinged as it rasped. "Mary Hargrove, return what you have taken." Mary screamed, but her voice was swallowed by the entity's presence. The creature reached for her with skeletal hands, its touch like ice piercing her skin. By morning, Mary was gone. Her husband searched for her, but all he found was a trail of muddy footprints leading from the house to the cemetery. The grave she had disturbed was now undisturbed, the soil smooth and undisturbed as if nothing had happened. Mary Hargrove was never seen again, but the townsfolk swore they could hear her name whispered on the wind on dark, moonless nights. Some say her restless spirit lingers in the cemetery, forever digging, forever searching, forever paying the price for her hubris.